I'm Ivelisse Page, and thanks for listening to the Believe Big podcast, the show where we take a deep dive into your healing with health experts, integrative practitioners, biblical faith leaders, and cancer thrivers from around the globe. Welcome to today's episode on the Believe Big podcast. My name is Ivelisse Page, and I'm always happy and thankful to spend this time with you. My guest today is Dr. Michael Karlfeldt. He is a board-certified naturopathic doctor and the founder of the Karlfeldt Center in Boise, Idaho. With over 30 years of experience, he's dedicated his career to bridging the conventional and integrative medicine gap. He's the author of A Better Way to Treat Cancer and co-author of Breast Cancer Breakthrough and host of several popular podcasts, including Integrative Cancer Solutions. Known for his compassionate, science-based approach, Dr. Karlfeldt helps patients explore comprehensive pathways to healing and long-term wellness. Welcome to the show, Dr. Karlfeldt.
Well, I am so excited. It's going to be so fun.
Well, we always start our episode with our guest's favorite health tip. Can you share one with us?
I actually would say that the favorite health tip would be a gratitude journal. And so I think that it has such an easy thing to do. And if you do it just right before going to bed, writing 3 things that you're grateful for, it really kind of sets your whole body up for all the amazing things that happen while you're sleeping. And I would say that would be number 1.
I love that. I usually do it in the morning. I didn't think about doing that at night, but I think that is a good thing to do right before bed so that your brain is reflecting on that gratitude. So thank you. I love that tip.
Because you're kind of in that middle stage where you're transitioning into sleep. And so now you're programming the body without any kind of interferences, because you're not in your daily activities. You're essentially, your whole body is now being programmed to do this while you're sleeping.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I'm really excited about today's episode because it's a question that a lot of people always ask. The truth is, I've been hearing numbers as high as 75% of cancer returning. And so there are many hidden root causes that most treatments don't address. And so I'm so grateful that you're on this podcast to really help us to explain what's going on here and why cancer is recurring at such a high level. But before we do that, I know you've spent decades in the naturopathic and integrative medicine world. Can you share how your early apprenticeship shaped your belief in treating the whole person and not just disease?
Yes. So my mentor, he was a leading naturopathic doctor in Sweden. And so the whole idea with naturopathic medicine is looking at the individual as a whole, that you can't isolate the kidney. It's going to be working along with the liver, with the small intestines, they're all working together. And so I think that is the biggest challenge in the medical professions, that we have all these specialists and all they know is that specialty that they are dealing with. And there is not that communication in between and understanding how it all correlates. And that's the beauty with naturopathic medicine, is that you look at the intelligence that exists within the body, recognizing that the body is the greatest doctor of all. And if we can then just support it with what it needs and remove the stressors that's interfering with that intelligence, we are then able to move that body into optimum health and well-being, because we are designed to heal. And actually, our bodies conspire towards our healing and our well-being.
I love that. Well, from your clinical experience, why do you believe cancer recurrence rates remain so high even after conventional treatments have been done?
And I think it's actually what we just touched upon, is that people get so tumor focused and they think that working on cancer and addressing cancer is to shrink a tumor. And in reality is that tumor is an effect. It's a symptom of what's going on systemically. And if we don't address what's going on systemically, what manifested the first time is going to manifest the second time because the environment didn't change. If we don't identify and understand what are the factors or root causes of what put the tumor there in the first place, then we essentially haven't done anything positive. And when you then bring in then harsh treatments like chemo, radiation, surgery, that are then depleting the body. And in fact, also it tends to then activate something that's called cancer stem cells, which are the cells that will then lay dormant, not impacted. Chemo cannot kill it. Radiation cannot kill them. They actually then get activated by both radiation and chemo. So now we have a depleted immune system. We have more toxins in our system. Our terrain is worse. And we have then made the cancer stem cells angry. So yes, we shrunk the tumor, but now we are in a place where that makes us very vulnerable for a recurrence. And that's why that frequently happens.
Yes. Yeah. And I also heard that it's things like mistletoe therapy and IV vitamin C that actually kills the circulating tumor cells and the circulating stem cells. Is that correct?
And that's the beauty, is that there's so many natural agents like that, like vitamin C, mistletoe, that are really powerful tools that helps to upregulate the immune system to then be able to identify these cancer stem cells, because they're laying there dormant. They're not dividing fast. So the chemo is not going to impact it because it looks for things that divide fast. And they are very resilient. They are very good at understanding the assault on the cancer cells and then being able to adjust how their behaviors are to then be able to spit out the chemo, become resilient to the chemo, have all these defense mechanisms. So by bringing in tools that then help to support the immune system's intelligence, we are then able then to more efficiently identify these aberrant cells, these cancer stem cells. And mistletoe is phenomenal at that. In fact, mistletoe, I feel, should be the foundation of pretty much any kind of cancer therapy, because it brings so much intelligence to the immune system. Whether you're choosing to do traditional oncology route or not, mistletoe should be part of that process, because if we're depleting the immune system with chemo and we're done with chemo, lo and behold, if we have no immune system, then we're not going to be able to fight off the remaining cancer cells. So if we support the immune system while going through some of these traditional oncology routes, we're going to be so much better off, and we're going to have a defense mechanism that's going to be able to clear out the remains, so to say, after the traditional oncology route.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. 1,000%. So chronic infections are also often overlooked in oncology. What types of infections do you commonly see linked to cancer recurrence, and how should patients explore this with their care team?
And that's becoming more and more common. And I think it is just people are dealing with a lot of stress. They're exposed to a lot of chemicals, heavy metals, nutritional deficient. Our food is not the same like what it used to be. So our immune system is suppressed. And obviously, if you're diagnosed with cancer, and that shows that your immune system is not where it needs to be. So we see there's a lot of correlation between different infectious agents and cancer. Commonly, what I see, things like mold, fungus, parasites, I would say those are very high up on the list. But then we also have other infectious agents that are starting to kind of creep up there. And these are the different Lyme bugs like Borrelia, Bartonella, Babesia. And then we have different viruses that are common, like the Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, other type of herpes viruses. So we got to look then at the terrain of where the cancer is evolving in. And that terrain is what essentially drives the behavior of the tumor. And so if we identify and see, yes, I see a lot of kind of parasites in the system. An individual maybe have lots of cats, lots of dogs, or they have on a farm where they get cattle. So they are then exposed to parasites in that way. Doesn't mean that you have to have animals to have parasites. All of us do. I mean, there's not an individual walking around that does not have parasite. So it is a good thing to do a parasite cleanse once in a while, no matter what. But to be able to then identify then these pathogens and see what is it that's contributing to this cancer moving forward or existing. And then in addition to then supporting the immune system and controlling a lot of cancer drivers, yeah, and then to also bring in then a protocol to address some of these infectious agents. And what that's going to do is it's going to lower the stress load of the body, lower the stress load on the immune system. So it can then be much more focused on working on the cancer, identifying cancer cells that are floating around, circulating tumor cells that are trying to set up shop elsewhere, so that we can have the proper police force focusing on what's important rather than their focus being deviated, focusing on things that it shouldn't. So that's the power of kind of decreasing the load, identifying what's in that tumor terrain, and then addressing that to relieve stress from the immune system so that it can do what it needs to do.
Yes. And another factor that we see everywhere now are environmental toxins. And what, in your opinion, are the most dangerous exposures patients should be aware of, and how can they begin reducing their toxic burden?
And that, I would say, plastic is huge. I mean, that is so pervasive and everywhere. I mean, there's studies showing that, I think they were saying that we eat like a plastic credit card a week in plastic. And we know plastic has a huge impact on your hormonal system, on your detox pathways, and very inflammatory. So it creates a lot of dysregulation throughout our system. In fact, some mortuaries, they have a hard time burning the bodies, cremating the bodies, because they have so much plastic in them. It's almost like they don't degrade as the way that they should. So that is a huge factor. And then we have common ones like aluminum, mercury is still a big issue, lead, cadmium. Those are very common ones that are there. And they have, in addition to creating an inflammatory environment in the body, it also suppresses the immune system. And a lot of talking about pathogens, fungus tend to hold on to a lot of heavy metals. Parasites tend to have heavy metals in its outer shield. And they do this as a mechanism to evade the immune system. And so cancer will essentially also hold on to a lot of this toxic debris and also have that in their tumor microenvironment, so that it's very hard for the immune system to be effective because it's so impacted by this toxic soup around the immune system. And we're exposed to these heavy metals and chemicals all the time. So even people that are thinking that I'm not drinking out of plastic water bottles, which is a huge thing. Everyone out there, you should not drink out of a plastic water bottle. We think they're so cool and nice at the grocery store, but they've been sitting in storage. They've been on a hot truck. So it's going to be the level of plastic in that water bottle is going to be outrageous. So stop that, please. And then so even though we may be doing all the right things, we're seeing there's so much in the environment. We have cloud seeding that's going on. We have all the vaccinations with all the aluminum and mercury there. We have in our cleaning agents, it's so ubiquitous. So we almost need to always focusing, in addition to cleaning out, addressing some of these infectious agents, is to support our ability to clean out this toxic debris that we're continually exposed to. Even if you're living on the South or North Pole, it's still going to be there.
Yes, those are excellent points. And for anyone who really wants to dive a little deeper into creating a non-toxic home or an environment, we did actually a whole podcast on that. And non-toxic home, she gave us really great tips, from using glass storage containers to your water filtration to things that you're putting on your body. And they're just really easy, practical things that can start to lessen that load that you're talking about in gentle ways. And so I'm really grateful that you brought that up, because that is a huge thing. I'm trying to figure out, how do I overcome the cloud seeding done here in Colorado with my garden and everything else? But we do what we can as best we can so that we reduce that load, as you mentioned. Something I feel that isn't very talked often about is stress and unresolved trauma. And I think in conventional care, it's not really talked about outside of, like, say, your office. So, how do these factors biologically influence cancer recurrence?
I mean, that's such a huge factor. And I would say, and this was one of the reasons I said that gratitude journal is one of my favorite little hacks, is because trauma and stressor, it really impact our immune system. It creates genetic change or epigenetic changes that drives the cell towards more of a survival state. And cancer, in my mind, is a cell that is shifting into survival mode. So if we live in that survival, it's more of a sympathetic state. We're dealing with stressors continually. Our immune system is then suppressed from that. So we're not going to be able to, because we're continually then looking at our environment and where there's something attacking us there. So our immune system is going to focus on that. And then over time, it's just going to get fatigued because you cannot focus on these stressors for a long period of time and then still be very alert on what's going on inside. And also we know that when you're in that stress state, you're not able to detoxify. So then you're building up all these toxins in your system and then fueling that tumor microenvironment, making it more toxic, making it more metabolic, making the cancer more metabolically active and aggressive. And so it becomes really important to make sure that we continually support our nervous system so we get out of that survival state. And we also know we can't regenerate when we are in that stress state. We are very poor at repairing the body because when we're running away from the tiger, we're not going to sit down and try to lick our wounds. At that time, we want to just survive. And so if we're in that survival state, we're not detoxifying, we're not fighting infections, and we're not healing, and we're also not absorbing nutrients. So all of those systems get shut down. So be able to then monitor your nervous system and regulate it and kind of free up stressors becomes really important. And that's just then looking at your today's picture. But then you have traumas and belief systems from childhood that you may be carrying, that you have stored in the subconscious. Even though it may have happened a long time ago, it's still playing in the back of your mind and is still needed to be addressed because it's kind of like having all these apps on your cell phone or on your laptop that keeps on running, draining battery, draining energy, slowing down function. And it's the same thing in our body when these apps or these belief system or traumas keep running in the background. We are depleting resources that we need in order to be able to, again, heal and fight off infections. And to me, there's this saying that cancer is a wound that never heals. And so if we don't have the resources we need in order to be able to heal tissue, it's going to be continually inflamed. And then it's continually not going to be able to get the resources it need to be strong and healthy. And then cancer can move into that tissue. And then we have generational trauma, which is a big thing as well that we don't think of. That's a gift that the prior generation gives to the next generation is what do you need in order to be able to survive what I survived? So we have maybe a mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, or it can be several generations back that went through a very traumatic event. And they want to make sure that the next generations are equipped to be able to deal with that very traumatic event. The issue is that the current generation may never face that event, and it's not really something that's current anymore. But that created then epigenetic changes within the cells of that next generation so that they are then ready for that trauma, ready for that event. So they've done studies showing that, for instance, third generation down from Auschwitz survivors, from concentration camp survivors, they experienced the exact same feeling, the anxiety, the panic attacks that somebody that was in a concentration camp would experience, even though their life were perfect, family life, they had job, no financial concerns, nothing in their life pointed to anything that would give them a reason to have the anxiety and the panic attack. other than that they were 3 generations down from somebody at a concentration camp. So yeah, healing trauma is so huge, in regards to cancer.
That is just so fascinating to me. And I completely agree. And it's something that you all do really well at the Karlfeldt Center. And I think that there are some physicians that even ask that in their intake. I still remember 15 years ago, Dr. Hindenburger asking me, did your mother experience any form of trauma while she was pregnant with you? And I was like, wow, it's a question, right? And once I start to think about it, she did. And so it's really something that that's not even talked about. And so once you discover that there was, and like the Auschwitz generations that came after, how does one help to resolve those traumas in a way that's healthy, that doesn't overwhelm the body because of those emotions are so strong?
And there are different techniques out there that are available. I mean, EMDR is one. You have recall healing. We do something that's called APN, Applied Psychoneurobiology. So there are a number of different techniques out there that are really beneficial. The key, I believe, is to be able to, once you identify and understand, it's kind of like once you shine light on something, it resolves. And so frequently, it may not have to be that much more than just identifying and understanding. And then you can, by seeing it and understanding the event, you can just do EFT tapping, or you can, there are plenty of other techniques. Just the key is to when you're facing the stressor, be it subconscious or when you kind of bring it to your consciousness, to bring the body in a relaxed state to kind of reset the nervous system in relationship to that stressor. So you're essentially reprogramming yourself. And that can be done in many different ways. But I believe that identifying is something that I love as well, is family constellation. I think that is a really powerful technique in regards to then correcting the genealogical family structure and making sure that energy flows through the generations to the individual, and that there are not interferences, that there weren't a sudden death or a suicide or some severe trauma or injury to an individual, to kind of identify what that is and then to heal that link within that generational line.
That's so beautiful. I've never heard that. That's incredible.
We appreciate you listening to the Believe Big podcast, where we help you discover hope, healing, and the latest breakthroughs in cancer care. Later this year, we will be bringing that mission to life through 2 powerful upcoming events. You can join us for the Harvesting Hope Dinner in Colorado on September 25th from 5 to 9 p.m. This is an inspiring evening of community, stories of impact, and a chance to bring hope directly to patients in need. Then, you won't want to miss the Integrative Cancer Symposium on October 17th at the Sheraton in Towson, Maryland, or attend virtually. This one-day event gathers leading experts in integrative oncology to share the latest scientific advancements, innovative therapies, and real-world strategies you can use today. Whether you're a patient, caregiver, or practitioner, this is where hope meets action. Learn more and reserve your spot at believebig.org/symposium.
Well, for someone who has, say, completed their treatment, they're told, you're cancer-free, right? What root causes should they still investigate to make sure to reduce that risk of recurrence? What would you say? Someone said, you're cancer-free. What would their next segment of protocol in your eyes be for them?
And to me, is obviously if you're done harsh treatments, you need to detoxify from those harsh treatments, and you need to support the immune system that's been beaten down by those harsh treatments. So to me, that is key number 1. I mean, I have patients come in here, they have some platinum drug where there's carboplatin or cisplatin or oxaliplatin. And so that's a heavy metal. And that heavy metal is going to trigger inflammation and suppress the immune system. And it's going to create hormonal dysregulation to then drive the body towards cancer. So we want to get that out of the system. We want to clean that out. And then we want to support the body in itself, in addition to the immune system, We want to heal tissue. We want to make sure it has the ability to regenerate and heal. And then we want to do an assessment. There are great functional labs that we run, and that's available. And many other providers run them as well, to then assess to see what is the pathogenic load that we're dealing with. Are we having mold issues? Do I have mold in my home? Am I dealing with what's going on with the gut? We know that about 70 to 80% of your immune system is along your gut lining, and a lot of the inflammatory signaling is coming from the gut. So how's my gut biome doing? How do I heal that? And then we look at what is my chemical and heavy metal load. We want to then look at glyphosates. What glyphosates we have correlated to a lot of cancers as well. So we want to look at all these factors. And then in addition to that, runs like circulating tumor cell labs. It's a really good and easy way to kind of keep an eye on things. We want to run some inflammatory labs and like C-reactive protein, sed rate, LDH, ferritin, fibrinogen. Keep an eye on those and make sure that they stay within line. We want to look at the ratios between the different white blood cells, like the neutrophil to lymphocyte to monocyte. How are they doing? Because there are certain ratios that indicates health, and there are certain ratios that says that we are not where we need to be at this moment. So to me, assessing all of that and then repairing from all the injury that these therapies created is such a key, because when you are no evidence of disease, that's when you really got to step in and work hard and roll up your sleeves.
Yes, I completely agree. And on the side of diet and lifestyle changes, you consistently recommend some to help patients create an environment where cancer is less likely to return. What are some of those practical changes that you share?
Well, so to create an environment, you got to assess what's around you, what's on you, and what's in you. Yeah, that's essentially. So around you, that also includes, relationships, your friends, family. We talked about physical parasites, but you also have then energetic parasites. So there may be individuals around you that continually sucks out your energy. You need to really guard your energy and make sure that it's being utilized for what it needs to be utilized. So if there are people around you that are like that, then you want to either, if they can't change, if they can't become the individual that really benefits you in your life, then maybe expose yourself less or none to those individuals. And then bring in people that really you feel good and you feel that where you have purpose and where you have meaning and where you have connection. Those things are so important in a person's life. And that spiritual connection, I think, is so important, whether you're Christian or Buddhist or whatever religion or philosophy that an individual has, to find that anchor, that spiritual, strong anchor that then makes them feel that I'm connected and I just don't kind of blow around here on earth for no reason. There's a connection that I have. I think that is so important. And then obviously eating, we want to minimize toxins in our food. And we want to eat low glycemic, non-inflammatory, nutrient-dense type of food. And there's several different diets out there or eating patterns. And I'm not going to say that one is better than the other, than following these kind of general guidelines, because it depends on where an individual is at in their journey, and also what type of cancer they're battling. It will then determine what kind of food that may be best for them. So yeah, diet I know is such a huge factor when you're dealing with cancer. And there's so much confusion, whether you should do plant-based, ketogenic, Mediterranean. And I say yes to all of those depending on where you're at.
Yeah, those are great tips. And I know, especially on the spiritual side, that was one of the big anchors in my life, is knowing that I had to realize that my circumstances may not change, but I knew who held my life in their hands. And so the Lord just really walked me through, that valley of the shadow of death, as it says in scripture. And in those moments of fear, he replaced it with peace. And I know there's been so many studies that have been done on the effects of when you're in a stress state and when you're in a peace state, your body can repair. And those prayers and that reliance and open hands of surrender really do allow your body to heal and help you to have a environment where cancer won't thrive. So I really love that you shared that too.
And fascinating. I was at church. This was a number of years ago. And the pastor was recounting a story of an individual that was not Christian, did not believe, but he was told that if he just recounted every day, by his stripes, I'm healed, just did that each time, that he would heal. And I believe he had like stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It was something really severe. And so he just kept saying that, even though he was not a Christian, by just that belief and connecting with that energy in some form, he actually got completely healed just by doing that.
That's crazy. That's incredible. Yeah, nothing's impossible with God. Nothing.
Nothing.
And so in closing, looking ahead, what changes do you believe are most needed in the medical system to better address the root causes of cancer rather than just the tumor?
A lot. I think that the next step should be, because we can't just revamp the whole system. And I'm not going to say that chemo, radiation, surgery are not needed. There are tools that sometimes are really much needed. I think what I would like to see is the integration, that it's more commonly talked about, looked at. And I would say I have a lot of oncologists here locally that and some of them even refer to me. So I'm seeing a little bit of winds of change in that area, and I'm really pleased. But I feel that we should move in that direction even more. And because I feel that both systems have great value, and if we can create a dialogue between the two, that we're able then to really benefit the patient and their outcome. And I feel that they were able then to relax into their treatment more, instead of feeling that they have to be this mediator between their oncologist and their functional medicine doctor, naturopathic doctor, and also not having to deal with the assault that they frequently get when they go to the oncologist saying that you're crazy doing this, or don't do any high dose vitamin C or mistletoe while we're doing these therapies, because it makes them work less. And even though they have no research to substantiate what they're saying, I think if we can move in that direction, then I think that'd be a huge step.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's one of the things that we're always trying to do at Believe Big too, is looking ahead to the future. And I'm really excited that this year we will be launching the phase 2 mistletoe clinical trial with Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. And I think that's one step to connecting these two worlds, where the best of both can be combined to help benefit the patient, and not only their quality of life, but also their quantity of life too.
And I love that. I heard about that when we spoke last. I think I was so thrilled to bits. And I think for all the listeners out there, recognize that these trials, they cost money. When you have a drug trial, a chemo drug, it's a pharmaceutical company that is then spending money to drive that trial. But to test something like mistletoe, there's no big pharmaceutical company that's going to spend money on that. So you depend then on donations. And so I feel that if individuals are able then to give money to these type of solid research studies to really bring natural substances up in front of doctors, I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Karlfeldt. It's been an amazing conversation. Grateful for all that you do for the patients that we work with. And so thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ivelisse. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support our podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Be sure to visit believebig.org to access the show notes and discover our bonus content. Thanks again, and keep believing big.